Everybody. This is Lisa with Lisa Marie Accounting, and I am here today for Sass It Up Live, the very first episode. And today I have with me Amber Hargett, and not only is she a client, but she's become a very dear friend of mine, and I'm so glad to have her here. And if you don't know who she is the sensitive badass, and that's what we're going to be doing today is sassing up sensitivity. But first, Amber, I'd like you to introduce yourself and kind of give everybody a little bit of a background about what you do, and then we'll move along, and this also gives some time for some people to show up.
Yeah, sounds good. So hi, everybody. I am super psyched to be here. I love Lisa. I've been a client of hers for almost a year now. She is amazing. Ooh, hey, Molly. And yeah, I'm just really psyched to be here to talk a little bit about what I do and what I'm all about. So as Lisa mentioned, I call myself the sensitive badass. And that is, I am an intuitive life coach, and I work specifically with women who are highly sensitive, who are struggling with that sensitivity, struggling with a sense of feeling like they have a place in this world, probably having a hard time with overwhelm and anxiety and depression, a lot of the things that come along with being a highly sensitive person who is not equipped with maybe the complete knowledge of your gift or all of the skills that it takes to kind of maximize the benefits and minimize the challenges of being highly sensitive. And so that's really the crux of the work that I do with my clients. I've been doing it for about 4 years now, full-time for about the last year and a half-ish, still working into that. But yeah, I love what I do, and I love Lisa, and I'm excited to be here.
I love you too. The feeling is mutual. Hey, Molly, we love you too. So glad you could hop on. Okay, so we're going to get into it. My first question for you is, and I think this is going to be my question for everybody because I think it's so important. I want to know what your why is. Why do you do what you do? Why is sensitivity your jam?
So when I first decided to become a life coach, when I decided that, because I worked in corporate advertising for years, and I was very burnt out, very depressed, feeling extremely unfulfilled. I really wanted to do something that was helping people. I've been through so much in my own personal life, a lot of trauma in my own childhood, and I had always wanted to take that and use it in some way to give back rather than letting it kind of destroy me. And so I really was searching for a career that had a greater meaning to me. So when I found life coaching, it totally clicked. I was like, this is amazing. This is what I'm meant to do, 100%. And as I started to kind of delve into what kind of a coach did I want to be, it really dawned on me that all the things that I really love helping women with and that I really love teaching on all fall under this lens of being highly sensitive. And for those of you who may be watching now or the replay who don't know what it means to be highly sensitive, I just want to give a quick little recap of just so that people know what I'm talking about. So it's actually a genetic trait, and the kind of brain science behind it is really fascinating. It's about 20% of the population that has this genetic trait. And there's a psychiatrist named Elaine Aron, and she was the one that kind of pioneered the research on high sensitivity in the early 90s. She's amazing. She wrote a book called The Highly Sensitive Person. If you're sensitive and you haven't read it, you should really pick up a copy. Anyway, so she did all of this research and found that in 20% of the population, and this includes animals, by the way, which I think is a particularly fascinating point, that we have basically our sensory neurons in our brain process data differently. So it's almost like we have a sixth sense. We take in more information about the world around us. And in some ways that can be really beautiful and really amazing. And in other ways, it can be extremely overwhelming and debilitating. And it's interesting because one of the things that she found in her research is that we also have more activation in what's called our mirror neurons. So basically our mirror neurons are like, if I see, like, you know, if Lisa takes a sip out of her coffee, right, then my brain fires as if I just took a sip out of my own coffee. So it's what gives us our level of empathy. Everybody has these mirror neurons, but those of us who are highly sensitive have much higher activation in them. So, you know, if you're highly sensitive, the world can feel very loud. It feels like the volume on life is turned up all the way. You probably startle easily. You pick up on the emotions of others. You get overwhelmed more easily. But you're also very, very creative and empathetic and intuitive. So it really has a light and a shadow side to it. So that's just kind of so that people understand what we're
Right. And you and I had actually talked about that when we first started working together, because remember, we're looking at the fact that we actually think my daughter, who has ADHD and has sensory processing, we also think she's highly sensitive because she's very creative. She's um, very able to do those things and empathetic, but she senses other people's emotions, and it gives her severe, not only her emotions, but the others gives her severe anxiety.
Yes.
And so because she has the ADHD and the sensory and doesn't know how to process it, it makes it that much worse, her having the sensitivity, because she's having to learn how to process it. So, and having that enlightenment, I know when me and you were talking about it, I think this is really important discussion for people to know about it, so they can know how to love. I love the way you say your thin skin, so they can know how to love the thin skin, because as a mom of someone who I think it's really important. So I'm going to get right into it, because I mentioned thin skin, and I know everybody probably who's seen my post are like, love my thin skin. What in the hell do you mean? So explain to me, what do you mean by learn to love your thin skin?
Yes. So many of us who have this highly sensitive trait and or empaths, I find them to be mostly an interchangeable term, slight differences, but we won't go into that. But so when you're growing up, a lot of times the messages that we get from the world around us are really negative, and it can be very detrimental. So we hear a lot of like, why are you so sensitive? Why are you so dramatic? Oh my God, why are you taking things so personally? Why are you so emotional? Just get over it, right? These are things that if you're an HSP, you're going to be sitting there nodding your head going, yeah, I've heard this my entire life, right? And so a lot of times what happens is we strive to, in an effort to fit in and to belong, and belonging is important to all human beings, but particularly those of us who are highly sensitive. We want so deeply to have really, really close relationships. And so in order to belong, especially as children, we feel like we need to, quote unquote, toughen up to fit into the world around us. The messages that we're getting from the outside world are somehow that our feelings are invalid, that they're too big, right? Or that our experience of the world is somehow incorrect. And so when you're a child, it's very hard for you to make anybody, especially like an adult figure or somebody that takes care of you, wrong. And so you will immediately decide that it's something that's wrong with you. So we grow up with this sense of being deeply flawed and feeling like we have to toughen up to fit in. And so a lot of times clients will come to me and they'll be like, oh my God, I just want a thicker skin. And what I will say to them is that's not really what this is about. And that's actually the opposite of what I teach, because although I deeply understand that longing to have a thicker skin, because I was there, that was me for a long time. I pushed down all of my feelings. I thought if I could just toughen up and just, drive myself hard enough to prove that I was normal, that I was like the others, that I could fit in, that I didn't have to be so sensitive and all of these things, that then I would truly be loved and then I would be happy. But the opposite is true, because we cannot get rid of our true nature. So if you're highly sensitive, the bad news is, not really bad news, might feel like bad news to you right now. Bad news is you're stuck with it. But the good news is also that you're stuck with it. And so really the work is not trying to become less of who you are. It's coming back home to who you truly are and learning how to work with your sensitivity instead of work against it. Because the more you fight it, the more it's going to come up in negative ways for you. The more you're going to find yourself being very reactive. When we bottle our emotions and we don't allow ourselves to feel them and we invalidate our own feelings, it's only going to lead to that manifesting in some other way in our body, whether it's anxiety or depression or a breakdown or a physical illness, right? But when we learn how to work with and accept and not be afraid of and process our deep, deep feelings and start to see the gifts in our sensitivity, that's literally learning to love the thin skin that you're in. And the thing is, like, there is enough tough guys out there. We don't need more tough guys. We need more deep feeling, tuned in souls in this world. And when you shut off that part of yourself, you're really shutting off the beauty of your gift.
I like that. And you'd also said something about like how you believe sensitivity is a superpower. And we didn't talk about that, but that is something I want to understand. And I think the audience would want to understand, what do you mean when you say sensitivity is a superpower?
So here's my theory on it, and this is just what I believe about being sensitive, is it literally is a sixth sense. I mean, we have the ability to kind of tap into things that people who don't have this trait can't do, right? As annoying as it can be to pick up on other people's emotions at times until you learn how to deal with it, it's also pretty cool that we can feel what other people are feeling, that we can, take in the beauty of this world at a different level than people that don't have this extra sensory processing that we have, right? And particular reason that I call it a superpower is because my personal belief is that part of the reason why it's so hard to be sensitive is because there's a lot of darkness in this world, and we're very tuned into that. We pick up on all of the things that are wrong. We notice when things are not working correctly. We notice when somebody's not feeling right. We feel these pains at a very deep level. And although that can be difficult until we learn coping skills for that, the cool part about it is my belief is that we're tuned into the dark parts of the world because we are supposed to be light workers. We're here to change that stuff. And if you don't see it, or if it's easy for you to ignore it, which for us it's not, then you can just walk right by. But for us, we feel compelled to give back. That's why so many highly sensitive people become therapists and healers and coaches and work in the medical field and are nurses or massage therapists, because we have this ability to tap in to what needs to be healed and to know what needs to be done for that healing to occur.
Right. That makes sense. I like it. I like it a lot. So if anyone has questions during the time when you're on here, or if you're watching it replay, please remember, of course, the replay will be up for 24 hours. And of course, I want you to ask the questions, and we will answer them as quickly as we can as well, because I can see them as we're going through. So my next question, and I think this also will, someone saying, okay, you know what, I think I am highly sensitive. So what steps can we as sensitive women, because I think most women are sensitive to a certain degree, but the highly sensitive, what can we do to love our thin skin?
So many things, but I'm going to give you guys a couple of steps so that
just give us like 2 or 3.
So a couple of key points that I want you guys to take away, and just know that this is not something that will change overnight. This is lifelong work, but getting started, there's a couple of really important things that you can do to start working with your sensitivity instead of against it. So the first really important thing is to get yourself a super solid self-care routine. And the reason for this is because we have this extra layer of sensing, right? We're taking in more information from the world around us. We have to have a very solid foundation of self-care and of peace and quiet in our life to enable us to be able to go out into this super loud and noisy world and still thrive as a human being, right? And part of the reason why, if you as a listener are in a place right now where you still feel like maybe your sensitivity is a curse, or you're feeling like, oh, I just want to toughen up, part of the reason why you're feeling that so potently is because if you don't have a solid foundation and base of a self-care routine, the world's going to feel much more painful for you. So the first step in eliminating some of that pain and making yourself feel a little bit stronger is to have this solid self-care routine. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can do that, and we don't have time to go into all of them, but just a few things that you can start to focus on is make sure that you have, even if it's only 5 minutes a day. Because listen, I understand how busy life is and how hard it is to put this stuff in. And it's hard for us to give to ourselves, right? Because we're so tuned into everybody else's needs. It's hard for us to pay attention to our own. But that is part of the reason for the self-care, because if we don't make time to sit in silence with ourselves, we're never going to be able to hear the voice of our inner guide above the voices of all of the noise of the world that we're taking in, right? So it is crucial that you spend at the very least 5 minutes alone with yourself a day. What that looks like can differ. If you want to journal, if you want to meditate, if you want to pull cards, whatever. So that's really important. Also, getting adequate sleep and nutrition and exercise are extremely important. These are just things that are going to set you up. Sleep is really important for everybody, but particularly those of us who are highly sensitive, we really need 8 hours. We really do. I mean, it will affect you. If you think about it, things affect us more deeply. Therefore, lack of sleep is going to affect you more deeply. Lack of proper nutrition is going to affect you more deeply. So you really want to set yourself up for success with that self-care. The other thing that I would recommend to start doing is to start keeping a list of all of the ways that your sensitivity does serve you, because you've probably been conditioned for a long time to pay attention to all of the negatives, right? Oh my God, I'm always getting criticized for this. Oh my God, that was so embarrassing that I started crying in that meeting at work. Oh my God, I just feel like I can't be around people, you know, for more than like an hour without having to recoup for 3 hours, right? All those things that can be annoying about it. But we want to start retraining our brain to look for the things that are really cool about it. Like, wow, I was able to really be there for my friend in a really powerful way. Or, wow, you know, I watched that movie and I was moved at such a deep, deep level. Like, start looking for the things that are good. Exactly. And keep a list of that, because as cliche as this, you know, sounds, what you focus on expands, and it's really true. So the more that you are noticing the light side of it and not the dark, the more that those things are going to start to show up for you. So those are 2 places to start with. And then I would really start to educate yourself about your sensitivity. So whether that's working with a coach like myself, or if you want to pick up a copy of Elaine Aron's The Highly Sensitive Person, there's a lot of great sensitive books out there. But hers would be my first recommendation, just for understanding the physiology behind it and why your body reacts the way that it does. Because the more you can understand about it, the more you can be like, oh, like this is just like literally how my brain is wired. Like there's nothing wrong with you, you know? There's nothing wrong with you.
Right. What was the name of the book again?
It's called The Highly Sensitive Person, and the author's name is Elaine Aron. It's Aron. It'll pop right up on Amazon. It's very popular. But yeah, but getting this really, like, integrating this into your soul, that like there is nothing wrong with you. In fact, you're extra special. Like you have something really, really cool, you know? Like you have a really unique, beautiful gift. It's not, and it doesn't have to pain you for the rest of your life. There are ways to learn how to work with it so that you can really start to delve into the cool part of it and not be so stuck suffering from the negative part of it.
I like it. Okay, my next question. I'm echoing. I hope I'm not echoing on Facebook. How do you start to reconnect to your own truth? Like, what steps can we take now, or the listeners can take now to actually reconnect to their own truth?
Yeah, so this is a really important one, and part of the reason why I wanted to discuss this on our, you know, in our conversation today is because so many times as sensitive people, we are talked out of our own truth. And that's because people say, you know, oh, I think we have a little echo going on. Do we have an echo?
Yeah, I do too, and I don't know how to fix it, so we'll keep going with it. I think it'll be okay.
Okay. Yeah, so, you know, people tell you that your reactions are wrong, that you're being too dramatic or too emotional or whatever. And what that does is it kind of tells us, like I mentioned earlier, that our world is somehow incorrect. So what happens is we start to doubt our own. You know, when we feel something, we start to tell ourselves what we're other people, like, oh, I'm just being too dramatic. And in you know, trying to cope with that, a lot of times we really disconnect from ourselves. We disconnect from our feelings. We disconnect from our sense of the world because it's painful. Because when we do speak our truth, we get told that we're wrong, right? And so many sensitive women have grown up completely disconnecting from what they know to be true from themselves and believing what people outside of them tell them over what their own body, their own emotions, and their own inner guide is telling them. So it's really important that we start to work on, you know, almost like rebuilding your relationship with yourself. And the ways to do this, it's really tied into the self-care. You've got to have time with yourself. Like, I like to talk about your relationship with yourself the same as you would your relationship with anybody else. So you have to spend time with that person. You have to nurture it. You have to put attention into it, right? You have to get to know that person. It's the same as when you meet a new friend or you start dating somebody new, or, you know, you have a new coworker, any of those things. It's the same with you, but we just don't often think of it that way. So really have to spend time alone. Journaling is huge because it's a really, really great way to have a conversation with yourself. Really starting to notice. One really practical tip that I like to teach, and this is helpful both for connecting with yourself and also for checking in with when you're picking up the emotions of other people. So I like to call it taking your emotional pulse. So I recommend setting, especially when you start doing this, setting an alarm on your phone for like 3 to 4 times a day. And literally you just have to take like 1 minute to check in with yourself. So if you're at work, like let's say you work in corporate and you're in like a busy office or something, go to the bathroom or like go outside or wherever you can go to kind of like step back from the noise and just literally like put your hand on your heart and like stop for a minute. Because how often do we stop, right? Like just stop and breathe and like check in with yourself and be like, where am I at right now? And close your eyes too, because closing your eyes helps you go inward. Where am I at right now? What am I feeling? What do I need? And in the beginning, it can be really hard. You'll be like, I don't flipping know. Like, I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't know what I need. And that's okay. This is like building a muscle. So the more that you do it, the stronger you're going to get. So if in the beginning you don't feel anything, then ask yourself, what am I feeling in my body right now? Like, are my shoulders up in my ears? Like, am I breathing? Do I have, am I nauseous? Do I have tension in my chest? Check in with those things and then ask yourself, what is that telling me? And so what this is doing is it's rewiring your brain. Again, these are all brain hacks to check in with yourself throughout the day and ask yourself those questions. What am I feeling? What do I need right now? And then listen to the answer and believe it when you start to hear it. Believe what you're feeling. If you're like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted and I'm so overwhelmed. And maybe a week ago you would have been like, yeah, but I just need to pull through it and whatever. No. Take a minute with that. You're exhausted and you're overwhelmed. Trust that. Hear that. Now, what do you need to get out of that place, right? So it's really, we need to rebuild that trust in our own sense of the world and stop pushing down our feelings, but let them come up knowing that, because here's the thing, you guys, feelings can feel really scary, especially if we have like a lot of them bottled up, that we have like, I like to think of it as it's just this like stack of like press down inside of you, and there's pressure, right? That's like bubbling up inside of you, and it can feel like this like tidal wave of emotions that's like constantly chasing you, and that's kind of what gives us this drive to like just keep running. And so it's scary to think about starting to let that out, and in the beginning it can feel really big and really overwhelming. But what I want you to know and to trust and understand is that over time, as you start to let your emotions breathe and come up as they happen in real time, they're going to go away much faster. They literally just want to be seen and heard. Like, they're there for a reason. We're not supposed to be happy all the time. We have a myriad of emotions for a reason. We unfortunately live in a culture that tells us that we're supposed to be happy all the time, but that's not the truth. Sadness is real. Anger is real. Anxiety and depression are real, but those things will only get worse and hang on longer if you don't listen to what they're trying to tell you. So we're really making... So
basically they want to be acknowledged.
Yeah. And if you can sit with an emotion, like really sit with it, like really feel it for a good 90 seconds, it's going to lift. That's not to say that, if something horrible happens, you can just sit there and feel it for 90 seconds and come back. I mean, I'm not saying that, but the intensity of it. Right. They really just they're trying to tell you something. Like, our emotions are guideposts. It's our inner compass. We're supposed to listen to them. We've just been taught the opposite.
So we didn't because I can see us as most women, I think, and entrepreneurs too, especially women entrepreneurs, we keep going. And so we just push things aside. And what you're saying is stop pushing it down and actually acknowledge it. And it won't be, not that it won't be as bad, but you'll be able to actually work through it. You'll be able to acknowledge it. It just wants to be heard and listened.
Exactly.
Awesome stuff. Y'all, I hope y'all are actually gathering all of this awesome stuff that she's given. Amber she's a sensitive badass. What can I say? I love her to pieces. And if you can't tell, she can talk about this all day long, kind of like me about numbers. She is awesome. I've actually asked her to put together a freebie for y'all because I wanted her to share something, and I'm going to let her tell y'all what that is. Then it will be posted in the link, of course. And then for anyone who's able to wants to catch the replay, you got to make sure that you sign up for my newsletter. And then all of the information that she's given, and also the extra little tidbits of stuff that I kind of took notes on, I will be in my newsletter along with the opt-in. And what's really, really cool, and this is kind of divine for me, is telling me that this is really meant to be, is one of the first things that Amber talked about was self-care. So guess what? And see, we didn't know that when I set up the shows, right? And the next show is Sassing Up Self-Care.
Awesome.
Right? So it's going to really lead into that. And I think that's really, really important. And as soon as you said that, I went, oh, wow. Okay, how could we have fixed that even any better, right? So you're going to get all kinds of ways to do what Amber's talking about, with making sure that you're doing some of that self-care, because it's going to be sassing up self-care. So will you please share with us what freebie you have, or what opt-in, what you've got for them, that they can get some more information, and then I want you to also make sure you post it in the links. And so far, no one's had any questions. So if anyone has any questions later on, please make sure you just put them in the comments. I will be checking throughout the next 24 hours, and I will also make sure if there's any questions for Amber, I will make sure that she gets them so that she can answer within the next 24 hours. Again, it goes down in 24 hours, but you can catch the replay in the newsletter. And so if you'll tell us about what you have for them.
Yeah, of course. So I created a really amazing, it's a 5-day free course. So it's entirely free, and it's 5 days long. It's very actionable. You get a video each day. They're usually about 3 to 5 minutes. So it's not going to take a ton of your time, but it's really potent, like awesome content. And it's called All the Feels. And it's basically is a really, really powerful little mini course that is going to walk you through a lot of amazing tips and tools for how to deal with emotional overwhelm, because that's one of the biggest things we struggle with, right? Is all of the feelings. And how do you handle all of the feelings, and how do you navigate life when you're carrying this extra load, right, of stuff around with you? And so that's what this course is all about. There's a free meditation in there that I recorded. There's some really great worksheets. It's just a really good starter kit for people who are struggling with this, overwhelming anxiety and just all of these feelings and not knowing what to do with them. So this is going to help you get on the path to loving the thin skin that you're in, because once you can kind of get a handle on how to navigate the world with this extra level of feeling, then that's going to start to change everything for you. Gina just asked, what can moms do to help our empathetic kids? Okay, I want to address that really quick, because that's—
No, you're fine. Go for it. Go for it. That's a good question, Gina.
Yeah, it really is, because it's so, and God bless you for asking that, because it's so important for parents who have empathetic and highly sensitive children to get educated. Because the way that you talk to them, it affects them profoundly. And unfortunately, I did not have parents who knew what they were doing around that particular area. And it was very damaging, And so I think one of the most important things is that you, Gina, educate yourself as much as possible about how your child is experiencing the world. You may or may not be highly sensitive and empathetic yourself. I'm guessing, I'm just intuitively feeling that you are. Obviously, you're on this call and you're watching this. But the more that you can understand it, the more that you'll be able to help your child, right? So I would recommend reading that book, The Highly Sensitive Person, if you haven't already. She also wrote an amazing book called The Highly Sensitive Child, which is all about how to parent a highly sensitive kid. So I would pick that up as well. But the main thing that I would say is to never, and I doubt that you do this, but to never shame your child for their feelings. Right? That's so important, because when children get shamed for their feelings, then they feel like it's wrong to feel. And that's so bad, because then they start disconnecting from their feelings, and that's not what we want. So I would talk to your child a lot about how it's okay to be, like, just talk to them about it, right? Like, about how it's okay to be deep feeling, how, like, explain to them that, I don't know how old your child is, but explain to them that they're going to pick up on the feelings of others. Have a conversation about it, because kids who have this ability can feel like they're really different and weird, and like nobody gets them, and they have this thing that they can do, and like, you know, it can be really scary for them. So normalize it for your child, you know, let them know like, yeah, you have this really cool gift. Like, it's almost like if you make them feel like they have this extra superpower. Oh, 15. Okay, good. Then you can have a really good conversation with your kid about this, right? You can have an adult conversation with your kid about this. But the more that you can help them to feel normal, the more that you can validate their feelings and their experience of the world for them, and the more that you can help them to have a safe place to talk about those feelings, the more set up your kid is going to be for success. So yeah. And also, I mean, I don't know if your kid would do it or not, but have them take my course. I mean, I teach the free course. Like, I teach a lot of this stuff in there. And it can be just so validating to hear other people talk about this stuff, you know?
Well, and I was supposed to say, is my daughter's 14, and I think she's got some of those things. And so, but her, because of some other issues, mentally, she's not at the chronological age. And I think I remember you telling me to validate and tell her it's okay, to have these feelings. And if she needs time alone, it's also okay, because that's part of her self-care. And so I think, like she's saying, Gina, validate and say, hey, look, you know, doesn't make you weird, doesn't make you strange. It's okay. You have a gift, and it's okay to feel these deep feelings, and let's talk about it. And then of course get the book, because I'm sure the book will actually give you some even more information. And if you have any more questions, I know Amber will answer them, because she has actually gone on and on with me and helped me a lot with my girls. So and thank you so much for asking the question, Gina. I hope that helped you a little bit. The name of the two books, as she was saying, The Highly Sensitive Person and then The Highly Sensitive Child. And so those are two books that she recommended. And does anyone else have any other questions? Or if you have any questions within the next 24 hours, please hit us up. I'll give it a minute and just see if anyone else is going to say anything, because I think it takes a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
I'm y'all gonna have to bear with me. I'm new to this Be Live stuff, so it takes a few minutes for it to pop up or tell us. But so I personally want to thank you for coming on and being my very first guest on Sass It Up Live. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I couldn't have asked for a better first guest, because you are the sensitive badass, and I think what you have to offer, and you can teach, especially women entrepreneurs who are highly sensitive, and even moms who have highly sensitive kids. You know, when we're entrepreneurs, we have so much on our plate already, and then we have highly sensitive kids. It makes it hard. It makes it, like you said, those emotions start to juggle, and you know, sometimes you don't know what ends up. And so I think it's really important. And I truly appreciate you coming on here today. And well, it's morning time for you, because you're 3 hours behind me, but I appreciate you taking the morning out of your morning to come and talk to us, and just tell us how we can love our thin skin, which I'm actually going to take that and I'm going to remind myself about that, because I think that's really a good notion. And if you will go on and put in the comments how they can get to the free course for me afterwards, and then I think you sent it to me, so I'll have it for the thing. But then again, I really truly appreciate having you here. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody who showed up. For the ones that are watching the replay, I hope you enjoy it, and thank you for coming and watching. And if you've got any questions, just post them and we will answer them as quickly as we can. Thank you again. I truly appreciate it. And I'm of course going to have you back on. So.
Well, it was so much fun to be here. Thank you for having me. And yeah, you guys, if you have questions, feel free to tag me in the comments so that I know that I can pop on and answer them. And I will post that link to the freebie as soon as we hop off.
Awesome. All right, hold on. We're going to end the broadcast. Thank you again, guys.